Hello, and just welcoming everyone who is joining. We are happy to have you here. We're going to get started in just a moment. So thank you for being here. Okay, looks like we have a great crew this evening. Just letting folks arrive. Welcome. Happy to have you. We'll get started in just a moment. Okay, so I think I'd love to get started and honor your time and welcome you all for being here. So, welcome to our Gallon Pre-Med chat. What to focus on your first year in college. My name is Jen Earls. I am our health sciences grad admissions team lead here at Gallon Education. I'm also one of our med school admissions advisors here. And from my background, just so you know a little bit more about me, I was the assistant director of pre-health advising at MIT, served as their main core pre-med advisor for a number of years. Really have enjoyed helping hundreds of applicants apply to med school successfully across the country. And one of my favorite topics is actually to talk to folks who are really early on in their career. So this webinar tonight is designed for those who are just graduating from high school and going to be entering your first year in college this fall, which is very exciting. So for all of you out there who are just beginning that journey, congratulations. And we're excited to help you get started on the right foot because in the med school journey, the earlier on you know the information you need to succeed and that you feel like you get access to those resources and that support and guidance, the more successful you'll be in the long run. So welcome to our presentation tonight and hope you really enjoy the journey. I do want to name that I'm delighted to have my colleague Rachel Hall here with us tonight. She is our vet and PA admissions advisor. She is an expert in all those areas. So we also have a robust team of people who can support with all different aspects of the pre-health process. And Rachel's kind enough to be here tonight to help us with questions in the chat. So throughout this evening, I welcome you to use the chat box below. Feel free to put your questions there and we'll stop periodically. Rachel will share those questions. I'll be happy to answer them, as well as we'll leave a time at the end for any questions that you have. I will also share that this webinar is being recorded, so we will send the link tomorrow for you to have and to watch back and to have as a resource throughout your time in school. So with that said, I'd love to get started and move forward. So what will we be going over tonight? I'm going to share with you all of the knowledge I have from being a pre-med advisor at MIT for many years and now doing the same work here at Gallon. And the topics we're going to cover tonight is really who can support you on your journey as starting as a pre-med. Additionally, really critical component is talking about academics and how to really set a solid foundation. We'll go through activities and what kinds of activities you can get involved in, what to focus on. A key piece will be talking about exploring medicine. That's going to be a very important component of this process. And really think it's important for you to get a sense from the beginning, the overview of the application timeline and all the elements so that you can see where you're headed and work backwards from there and figure out what you want to do and when you want to do it. And finally, we'll leave you with some resources so that you can really just begin to read further, explore further, and really inform yourself so you feel really educated throughout your journey. Okay, this is my favorite piece to start with. And having worked at MIT and now here at Gallon, what I see is for people who are most successful along the pre-med journey is they have an ecosystem of support from the beginning. So the first semester, who should you be meeting? Who should you be letting know that you are a pre-med and this is an interest of yours? You may have already met with your academic advisor this summer. You may be meeting with them soon. And it's important to let them know. Meet with them as soon as you can. Let them know that you're interested in being pre-med because they're going to help you choose your courses, making sure that you're meeting those pre-med requirements. And also they can connect you to faculty or other opportunities. And we'll talk more about those later. If your school has a pre-health advisor, you should definitely meet with them. Establish that relationship within the first semester. I know there's a lot for you to do that first semester, but meeting them and getting connected, getting on their email list or on other social media or connection listservs they have is really important because as soon as they know you, they can start looking out for opportunities for you and helping you along your journey. At MIT, I actually was also in the Career Services Center too. So I was a pre-health advisor there, but we were part of the Career Services Center. And it's equally important for you to meet with career services because they can help you with a resume or finding internships or get you connected to alumni who might be able to help you and give you opportunities. So I would say that really that first semester is really meeting people and establishing those supportive relationships so that they can really help you along your journey. Um, just a reminder, these are people who want to support you. That is their job. They're excited to give you resources and opportunities. They want to open doors for you. And finally, we want to make sure you're really balanced. We know that first semester, first year, it's an adjustment period, and that's totally normal, very expected. So make sure, maybe there's a wellness, community wellness department or health services department. Make sure you know who those people are. And a lot of times they have really great resources for stress management. They might have mindfulness classes or yoga or counseling services, all to support you with the transition and also to build really solid foundation of balance from the beginning so that you can carry that on through your journey of being a pre-med. So next up is getting into the academic groove. So this is aside from just building relationships and getting that ecosystem of support, it's really important that first semester, especially to establish a solid academic foundation. So what does that mean? You want to begin to take some of those pre-med course requirements. Your unique schedule will be dependent on which school you're going to. So that's why it's important for you to meet with your academic advisor and or your pre-health advisor. Some classes you might take would be Intro to Bio, Intro to Gen Chem, Intro to Physics and or Math. And again, your unique schedule will depend on your school and how they set up, that schedule over a number of years. But the biggest piece I would say is to learn how to study effectively. We always said at MIT, learn how to learn your first semester and your first year. And you may have done really well in high school and been like a superstar, or you might also still be learning skills where you're like, wow, this is an area I really want to keep working on. Wherever you're at in your academic journey is okay. College is a fresh start, and it's really about building those relationships again with the people that can support you so you can succeed academically. So who are those people? You definitely want to go to office hours with professors or TAs. Even if you're doing well, I recommend you go there because you're going to meet your faculty, you're going to meet your TAs, establish those relations. So if anything does come up, they're there to support you and you understand how that process works. A lot of times your school will have like an academic advising center where you can actually go, drop in, get help right away. So make sure you're aware of those resources and you don't wait until it's an issue. If you think you're like, wow, this might be a little harder than I thought, go right away, get that support. It's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. Another amazing resource for you is going to be your upper class students. So maybe during orientation, you're meeting upper class students. You can, check in with them like, hey, how did you handle X, Y, and Z class? And maybe they can give you their tips on how they succeeded through that process. You can join a study group. You can create a study group with friends. That's also really fun and a way for you all to thrive more together. And finally, tutoring is always a great option too. Sometimes the Academic Advising Center will have tutoring services or there are private tutoring services, but that one-on-one support can often be sometimes from an upper class student or somebody else, a professional, and they can really help you succeed in that academic journey. Um, so a last note about academics is that I want to stress going to office hours, especially for what we call BCPM classes. And that acronym is biology, chemistry, physics, and math. Those are your core science classes that med schools will value highly on your application. So not only do you want to go to succeed in the class, but you really want to build relationships with faculty. And there are many for reasons for that. You might end up being able to do research with one of those faculty members. Maybe they invite you to that opportunity. Maybe they invite you to TA for one of their classes. So you're getting leadership opportunities, research invitations. Maybe they have colleagues who are, work in a medical school or at a hospital and they're able to connect you for shadowing opportunities. And finally, for medical school, you will ultimately need 2 letters of recommendation from science faculty. These are people who have taught you in the sciences, not just people you've done research with. So that's the biggest piece one of the biggest pieces people will come to me and say, I never really got to develop those relationships with faculty because my science classes were really big, or I never went to office hours. So it's really important to begin to do that early on. And if you're feeling a little shy about that process, you can read about your professor's work online. You could ask them, what do you find most meaningful about your work? You can share with them that you're a pre-med and you're excited to be a part of their class, and if they recommend any opportunities for you. Yeah, and one of my favorites is just go with a couple of friends, like people you meet in your class, go together so that you feel it's more accessible to you. So this is all to really get started in a strong academic way. So you set that foundation for the rest of your time in college. So I just want to pause and see, Rachel, if there are any questions so far.
No questions have popped up yet.
Okay, great. Thanks, Rachel. And just a reminder, if you have any questions that are coming up on your mind, you're welcome to put them in the chat. I'm happy to answer them. Okay, so we talked about academics, and next is interest. And this is probably something you're really excited about as you're beginning college. It's all of the amazing activities that you can get involved in and the people you're going to meet as part of this journey, both on and off campus. So there really truly are, like, the sky's the limit, really, in terms of activities. But here's just a brief list, and there are more. It doesn't just have to be on this list of what you could get involved in. And I will say you don't have to do all of them. I would say pick a couple that you feel really excited about, that you really want to start with, and then you can build over time. We get a little bit of breath in, maybe you're doing some service, maybe you're doing another interest like a culture, and we'll talk about like other activities later on, but you're getting some breath, but then you're getting depth over time in areas that you're really interested in. So service is going to be a key component, right, for medical school, because becoming a physician really is a commitment to a path of serving humanity. So I would recommend you explore some opportunities in that first year. Could be the first semester or first year of giving back to your community. It might be volunteering at a hospital, or it might even be mentoring youth, underserved youth, a cause that you feel passionate about, but starting to get involved in this capacity of giving to others and really seeing if that resonates with you. Social justice is becoming an even more valued component for med school applications. They added this as an actual activity section a couple of years ago. So they really want to see evidence that you're somebody who can work with people who maybe are underserved or underrepresented, or who really are different than you, and that you've worked to be an advocate for those folks. So that could be an area that you explore your first year. Other topics might be arts. That could be performing arts. It could be music. It could be visual arts. Whatever you feel excited and called to explore, that's another area. Culture is a big component. So if that's part of your journey and you want to be part of a cultural association, cultural arts association, that could be really meaningful for you. Sports, that could be you are a college athlete, or it could be you're in intramural sports or club sports. That can be a really great way to meet people and build teamwork and build leadership. Um, Academic clubs, a great place to look would be like the Biology Students Association or Biological Engineering Students Association. And some of these clubs will oftentimes bring in, especially like biology or bioengineering, they might actually bring in physicians or faculty that are more related to the medical path. So that might be something to really look into. You also might get involved in student government, Greek life, like fraternities or sororities, or faith-based organization, if that's part of your journey. Um, Research. It's not always do I see people get involved in research that first semester. I wouldn't necessarily push yourself to do that first semester. Maybe it's second semester, or maybe it's even the second year, but you could start looking into research opportunities and just see what's available to you, what labs you're, excited about, or faculty you would be excited to work with. And finally, work. So sometimes folks do need to work during college to help support yourself through that journey, or maybe you're interested in getting a job because you could earn some extra income and get some extra skills. Um, and that's a really valuable part of your application too, because really the truth is in all of these activities, you are learning skills, you are learning competencies that medical schools will want to see. So, um, I will just say by the end of year one, so year one is really about exploration. Like, I don't want you to feel like you have to know everything you're going to do, in that first year. I would say pick maybe 1 to 3, 2 to 4 activities that you're really excited about and start to explore and see what you're feeling. Wow, this is really exciting me. I want to commit to this. And then maybe by the end of year one, decide what you would like to commit to a bit more in depth. And finally, the last note on this slide is probably one of the most important ones. So this is your little assignment for summer homework. It'll take you about 10 minutes, but you can read this link, which we'll share out the recording. Is the AAMC competencies. What does AAMC stand for? It is the Association of American Medical Colleges. And basically these competencies are there are 17 competencies now, and the medical schools in the US got together and said, you know what, we really should have a core list of competencies that our med students, our entering med students will have. And these competencies really cover both professional skills as well as like scientific inquiry and thinking and reasoning competencies. So these might be skills like teamwork or interpersonal skills, empathy, right? So immediately we're thinking about, let's look at maybe you get involved in a sports team, and you can be thinking about, oh, in this activity I'm learning teamwork. So my recommendation for you would be, in the beginning, maybe create a little Excel sheet, a Google sheet, and you can put in the competencies, so you have those as reference, and you can put in the activities you're getting involved in. And then you can say, oh, in this activity I'm learning these couple of competencies. And over time, you really want to be able to show that you've learned and developed all of these competencies. So this can be a really great guide for you. I wouldn't say like just pick it because it actually fulfills a competency. I would say start with what you're interested in and then look at the competencies and see which ones you are fulfilling as part of that. So, but actually, were there any questions about that, Rachel, so far? Okay, great.
Nope.
Okay. Excellent. So this is a really key piece about exploring medicine. So everybody's journey will be different for this process. You can even start if you have some time this summer. It would actually be a great time if you have an opportunity to shadow some physicians or volunteer at a hospital. The experiences post graduating high school, anything after graduating high school can be included on your med school application. So you can even start this summer of shadowing or volunteering in a hospital. Once you get to school, a great place to start, if there is a pre-med student club, I would highly recommend you get connected to them, because their purpose is to help you explore the pre-med path at your school. So I would definitely look at that. Um, Again, your first semester, I would say really focus on getting a solid foundation academically and really building that ecosystem of support. It may feel like a bit too much to try to do a lot more than that as you're exploring activities and meeting people and getting settled. So you might want to aim for winter break, would be a great time to maybe shadow a bit, volunteer in a hospital. Maybe you might want to get a training of some sort if you're able to do that. And then throughout the year, you might look into spring semester. It could be a great time for volunteering in a hospital, shadowing more physicians. And then summer, I would say summer after first year is probably the best time to really set your sights on getting a solid clinical experience. So that could be a mixture of volunteering, as we shared. It could be a hospital, hospice setting, community health center or clinic, shadowing physicians, ideally in at least 3 different specialties would be wonderful. 3 different physicians would be ideal too. And then you could even look for and apply for potentially a clinical research assistant position, or you might even want to do a training. Like some folks will do a medical assistant training or certified nursing assistant training. So that way it sets them up to be able to work more in a clinical capacity during college and or after college. So another thing you can do during your year is read if you like to read and that's something you enjoy doing, you could pick up a pre-med book by, for example, a physician who's been in the field and is sharing their experiences. And also recommended during the year will be, as I mentioned earlier, keep a journal. Definitely have a Google Sheet or a Google Doc where you're tracking your experiences and, tracking when you went to the hospital, who you shadowed, how many hours you were there, and most importantly, why was it meaningful to you? What did you learn about medicine and why it's inspiring you, or maybe what kind of doctor you want to be as a result of seeing that physician? So that first year, I would say it's a great opportunity to shadow, maybe volunteer, and set your sights on what you might like to do summer after your first year. I know that's far away to think about, but at least maybe during the year, you might be able to get a training and then even work in a clinical capacity over the summer, which would be really excellent. And again, that first semester, don't put a ton of pressure on yourself to do a lot of extra unless you feel like you've got capacity for that. Try to focus on academics, that ecosystem of support, activities, and getting to know, settling in with your community and your school. So, and just another note, and then I'll check in, Rachel, to see if there are any questions. About the importance of patient exposure beyond shadowing. So again, I don't want to share this number so that you feel like you have to check a box because that's not what the med school path is. Yes, there are components, but it's not just about that. It's really, there's a whole that's greater than the sum of the parts. Med schools are ultimately looking for your uniqueness and your narrative and your theme and those kinds of pieces. However, I will say that generally speaking, competitive applicants have anywhere from 300 or 400 to 1,000 plus hours of clinical exposure when they apply. And that does include shadowing, but it's beyond that. It also involves direct patient exposure and experience. So I think it's important for folks to know that ahead of time, not to feel overwhelmed because you can do that. It's manageable over 3, 4, years of school. And sometimes folks take a gap year or two. It's definitely manageable. I just want you to know ahead of time so you can just do it over time. And what are some ways people often ask me, what are ways I can gain this experience? Well, we've talked about some of them: clinical volunteering, as I mentioned, hospital, hospice, clinic, community health center. Some of the best experiences my folks have had, my applicants have had working as a medical assistant. I will say that getting that training can take a number of months. So that's why, some folks will do that training online during the year, or they'll do a training over the summer. Um, EMT work as well. Some schools will have an EMT service on campus and folks will get involved there, or folks will do a training and then maybe work in an ambulance over the summer, those kinds of things. Certified nursing assistant is a great opportunity because in this capacity, I've had some applicants who they're able to get this training and then they're able to work per diem, meaning like they're able to pick up shifts as they like during the school year and or during the summer. Where some of these jobs like medical assistant sometimes require you to work for a year and commit for a longer period of time, as well as like a role of a scribe. Usually they're looking for a longer commitment. So I would say, and lastly, clinical research coordinator is another great, or clinical research assistant, it's another great opportunity. So I will say that if you're trying to work in a clinical capacity during the year, ones like certified nursing assistant or patient care assistant tend to be a little bit easier to get those opportunities. Medical assistant roles for like a shorter period of time, a lot of times you might need to kind of get a connection and meet a doctor or know somebody who can help you get in for that kind of experience. Otherwise, you might need to get a longer training. So this is just a list of possibilities. There might be other options out there for you. But just want to give you a heads up and what you can think about. So maybe during this year, you're thinking about, could I get a training during the year or could I get a training next summer? And meanwhile, volunteer and shadow to start building that experience. So let me pause there and see, Rachel, if there are any questions so far.
Nothing's come through yet.
Good. I guess I'm answering all of them as I go. Hopefully everyone out there is enjoying. So let's shift gears a little bit. And I want to just share, I know it feels strange to share the timeline, right? When you're just starting school. Um, I want to reiterate that starting school is an exciting time and you want to be present and enjoy this moment. And it's helpful to know where you're headed, right? To help you kind of plan ahead and have plenty of time to do all the things you want to do and need to do. So this is the timeline for applying to med school. It is an application timeline overview. So the little asterisk underneath says begin this process 2 years before you want to start med school. So what does that mean really? And I'll share with you a couple of scenarios of when you might apply. It really just everybody's different, so it really just depends on you and your unique journey. But essentially, there's 1 year of like a fall to spring, like think of it like an academic year of 1 year of preparing your application materials, right? And then there's 1 year once you hit submit, which is in the May timeframe, then that next year is interviews. So really it does take about a year and a half to 2 years of just putting your application together and then interviewing. So when could you start this process? The earliest you could start this, I'm going to say the earliest usually in most cases would be junior year, junior fall, we're starting this timeline. And the end of junior year, you can hit submit on your application, and then senior year, you're interviewing. I will say, with the caveat, this is not common these days. The average age of entering med students is 24. So what does that tell you? It tells you people are taking 1 to 2 gap years. So I would say all of my applicants last year had at least 1 or 2 gap years. It's just what's common these days. So I'm going to give you the scenario of more likely maybe senior fall, we're working on your materials, and then at end of senior spring, you're applying, and then that year after, you're working in a clinical capacity and you're interviewing. That's a more common scenario. So let's say that was the scenario. Um, Senior fall, we would put together your like application plan and timeline. I think it's really important to have for med school, you do need to have anywhere between 4 to 6 letters of recommendation. So those are those 2 science faculty, 1 non-science faculty. Then usually folks will have like maybe it's a clinical service research right there. That's anywhere from 4 to 6, right? So we'll kind of solidify that list in that fall timeframe and make sure those folks are on board to write for you. And then we may even begin brainstorming your personal statement. And then let's say senior spring, we are definitely officially requesting those letters of rec. We're writing, you get to write, just like for college, you wrote, a personal statement. We're writing a why medicine personal statement. Also on AMCAS, which is the application service for MD programs, you have up to 15 spaces to write about your activities. So I know that may sound like a lot, but it does actually add up over time. So we work on writing out those little mini essays for all of your what's called work and activities on AMCAS. And then I know this may sound like a lot because in college, when you're applying to college, you're not applying to this many schools. At least I don't think so these days. We help you develop a list of 20 to 30 schools to apply to, which I know sounds like a lot, but that is what is most common these days. So, okay, senior spring, we got your application plan going. We got your letter of rec writers going. We started brainstorming personal statement. Senior spring, we really finish up your application materials, your why medicine statement, your working activities, your school list. Now the application opened for AMCAS this year. It opened on May 1. And so then you'll open it. You can put in all your classes. You request your transcripts from the schools you've been to. There are a couple of situational judgment tests. Don't worry, it's nothing like the MCAT, which I'll talk about later. They're just situational judgment, short little online tests that they're really looking for your professionalism and your skills, so you can do that in that time frame. Then ideally you're submitting your application either by end of May or early June. So that would have been your senior year in this scenario, right? And then that May through the summer timeframe, just like in college applications, you have to write those supplemental essays. the med schools will send. That's what I'm helping applicants with right now is we're having them write their supplemental essays and submit those. And then actually already had somebody who got an interview request, which is exciting. So already prepping people for interviews in that July, August timeframe, and then August through the March of the next year, you could be interviewing and making decisions. So it really does take about that 1.5 to 2 years. That was as if you were a senior you could do this as a junior. I'm not saying you can't. If you're one of those you're like ready to go, that's fine too, but just double check with your advisor that that's the right path for you. And even more common too, like I had one applicant who she worked for a year as an EMT, and while she was working for a year as an EMT, she was developing all of these applications. So she graduated, then that fall after graduating, she started this process. 1 year out of graduating, she submitted her application, and then she had one additional gap year, right, where she was still working as an EMT. And yeah, and she was also successful in the process. So really that's why it says start this like 2 years before you want to start med school. It doesn't say junior year, senior year, or the year after. So hopefully that helps you just get a better sense of the timeline. And again, we want to share with you how this can be built over time. It's not, so this is less stressful as working with an advisor over that year. You have everything ready to go, ready ahead of time to submit. So I'm sure folks may have questions about the MCAT, so I will touch base on that, and then Rachel, I'll see if there are any questions. But um, people often ask, like, when is a good time to take the MCAT? And again, there's sort of multiple answers to this question depending on you and your journey. So again, everybody's different, but the earliest you would likely take this test would be the end of the summer after your sophomore year. And again, that's if you're being pretty like with an aggressive timeline of you're like, I'm applying at the end of my junior year. I want to go to med school right after graduating, which I will repeat is not the norm these days. The norm is more taking more time. The next would be because the last dates for the MCAT, they don't just run them all year round. So end of sophomore summer might be like end of August or early September timeframe. Then there's a break where there aren't any MCAT dates. And then the next MCAT dates are in January. So you could take it your January of your junior year if you wanted to apply at the end of your junior year. Now, if you're like, you know what, that feels a little rushed because a lot of times people just need more time to take the coursework, like take all the pre-med requirements, especially like biochem, orgo, taking psychology, getting all these in so that you actually learn the content that's on the exam. So a lot of times people will wait, and a really common time would be to take it at the end of the summer after your junior year. So like an August or September timeframe. If you're like, that feels a little rushed for me because you want more time to study and maybe you're working that summer in a clinical capacity, you could push it to the January of your senior year. That's also an option. And you might start studying over that summer and then take 6 months and then be ready in January. That's a really common time too. Now, if you're saying, you know what, I want to take more time. I really want to like work for a year after school and then apply, and then I'll have 2 gap years. Probably the latest you would want to take it might be the summer after you graduate. And the reason for that is you're still in study mode. And sometimes it becomes a little bit harder, not always the case, but it can be a little bit harder the more time out of school to be in that kind of study mode. Having spoken with a number of MCAT tutors and folks who this is their wheelhouse, generally it's advised to have more time to study. Like ideally, it would be great if you have 6 months to study, but at least 3 months. And there are many programs that, personalized programs working with tutors that can really help you. But I do think just kind of planning out a general idea of your schedule and when you might want to do it can just help you begin to think ahead for that. So let me check in and see, Rachel, if there are any questions that have come through.
Nothing's come through yet.
All right. Well, I hope everyone's just enjoying at home listening, and maybe you'll have some questions at the end. Great. So at the end, so this is just really a slide about taking stock, right? At the end of your first semester or the end of your first year, it's a great idea to just check in with yourself, right? Sometimes we're on this path and you think, this is what I'm going to do. And It's what I've always thought I would do. And it's just important to keep checking in with yourself and make sure that that's still true for you. And there are plenty of other options also besides just the med school path that, you might learn about along your journey. But just checking in with yourself and seeing, am I still a good fit? Is this still, aligned with me? Do I have what's needed? What might I need to work on? So are you still intellectually interested? Are you still excited about the field of medicine? Maybe you were shadowing or, and were you really excited? Did it feel good to be there? Do you want to learn more about that? Do you feel like you have that service orientation? Maybe you tried some volunteering and did you really feel excited about that human to human connection and really giving back in that way? Um, are you able to demonstrate some strength in the sciences academically? And I will say it's okay if the first year has some bumps in the road. It's common first semester and or first year. It doesn't mean that if you get, a lower grade that med school's out for you. There's plenty of ways to bolster over your 4 years as well as beyond that. So don't let that be the reason that you think med school is not for you, but it will be important to build that academic strength over time in the sciences so that you can, succeed in clinical coursework. Have you been able to, demonstrate or feel like you can be part of a team? Is that something that you really enjoy and are looking forward to? Because in medicine, you're going to be part of a care team. So that's going to be a key component. And check in on your time management skills, right? And this is also an area that it's okay if you're adjusting to that your first semester, your first year. Learning how to balance everything is a huge part of what we work on. But just checking in, is that something I'm good at? Is that something I can really develop so that, I can balance all the elements, right? And finally, just comfort with uncomfortable situations and or uncertainty because medicine, is going to bring a lot of that. And again, it's okay if you may get a yes or a no and it may be like, you know what, maybe this path isn't for me, or maybe it is and it's just there are some areas that I need to keep bolstering and these are things I want to work on in the next year or over the summer so that you can continue to grow. And that's okay. Med schools want to see that you grow over time. They don't want to just see, they're not expecting a perfect person and they're not no applicant is perfect. Everybody's going to have areas of strengths and areas for growth. So it's just this is an important self check-in at the end of the first semester in year 1. Okay, so we're getting to the end. So hopefully you're thinking if you have any questions, because I'm happy to answer them momentarily. But I will say, I also worked in the orientation office at MIT, and it was such an exciting time to welcome people to school. So I just hope that we're hoping that you really enjoy orientation and your first semester. It's an exciting time. Just want to remind you that your well-being is your top priority as well as your studies and really setting a solid foundation. And I will say that my applicants who are the most successful do have an ecosystem of support that they actively build on campus. So letting your advisors know, letting your mentors know, hey, here's who I am, here's what I'm interested in, so that they can help you, right? So meet with your academic advisor, let them know you're interested in the pre-med path so they can get you right on that track with the coursework. You can always change your mind, but getting started, at least you're on track from the beginning and helping you figure out study support options, right? um, Meeting with your pre-health advisor at school. Also, we have the pre-health advising services at Gallon Education. That's one of my favorite things to do is, work with people right away and early on so that you can really build yourself over time and have that support and guidance so you feel confident throughout. Um, as I mentioned, I know it can sound a little crazy, but to meet with your career services at school, because even that first year, they can help you with resumes, internships, research opportunities, connecting you with alumni, maybe who are physicians and things like that. Um, and finally, the wellness piece. The wellness piece is a big deal, and making sure that you have resources to stay balanced, emotionally, physically, mentally, all these components. Um, I know that this is an odd bullet here, but it's important for us to say you're beginning school and your record will matter. So try to make good judgments and avoid being in situations or with people that, situations that could result in a misdemeanor or institutional action, because that can be a real challenge to overcome, if not a reason that sometimes folks are not able to apply or not able to be successful because of that. So I will just say, make good decisions, have good judgment, If you're uncertain about a situation, it's a good time to just say, hey, this is not for me. This is not aligned with where I want to go in my future. And really align yourself with peers and people who are going to uplift you and really support you along your journey and your goals. And finally, just a reminder that yes, we've shared about, the elements and the process of what to focus on. But ultimately, it's time to explore and it's time to discover what you love. Because if you're really excited and passionate about something, you know, it might be rowing, it might be helping people with adaptive technology, it might be, um, you start a club where you're bringing music playing an instrument in a hospital setting, whatever it is that you're excited about and interested in, if you follow those things, you're going to be invested. Your passion is going to shine through. Your unique narrative and your unique stories and theme are going to shine through to medical schools, and that's ultimately what they want to see. So really follow that, what's in your interests along with these elements. So, what are some resources to really help you? And some of these we already discussed. So, on the left hand side, we talked about your pre health advisors at school, your academic advisors, your career services people, faculty, TAs, upperclassmen. Let them all know this is your interest, this is your journey, and can they brainstorm with you or help you along your path? Like, let them open your mind about what's possible for you. We also here at Gallon, we are pre-health advisors too. So we both do the pre-health prep process as well as med school admissions advising. So we help you bolster, build your whole pre-med plan. But then when you're ready to apply, we also can help with that part of it. And then on the right-hand side, this is just a list of resources for you to, you know, peruse and have at your fingertips. So as I mentioned, the AAMC, Association of American Medical Colleges, it's a great website, has so many resources about being what it means to become a doctor and that process. As I mentioned, your little mini assignment, if you did not forget, is to read the AAMC competencies list. You can just Google that, go to their website and read those 17 competencies. And really, it'll take you 10 minutes, maybe even less, but just really understand what medical schools are looking for from you. And then you can keep that as a framework over your time. ACOM is really helpful too, which is the American Association of Colleges of Osteopathic Medicine. So if you're thinking about not only the MD path, there's the DO path. So that's a great way to learn more about that option. And finally, if you're like really into, databases and things like that, there's the MSAR, which stands for Medical School Admission Requirements. What is that? It is a med school research tool. So you pay $28 for the year and you get this whole database of MD programs across the country, and you can sort by location, GPA, MCAT, you can read about their curriculum, you can read about their mission. Um, it's just a really great way to familiarize yourself with the med schools that are out there and what makes each of them unique. And if you have your heart set on one that you'd really love to apply to in the future, you could read about them now and just get a sense of what they value and what they're about. So hopefully those resources will help you on your journey. And just to close, I will say that we here at Gallon, we love our work. We love what we do. We really enjoy being that support and that guide along your whole journey, both with the knowledge and the advising of the process, but also the support of helping you feel confident and really navigating any situations that might come up. So we have a total of 5 med admissions advisors, including me. And that includes MD, DO, and MD PhD. We actually have Vaishali Bakshi on our team. She has a PhD, and she serves actually on the MSTP admissions committees at UW Madison School of Medicine. So she can really help, especially with the MD PhD process. And she also works with our PsyD and PhD applicants in STEM, biomedical and psychology tracks. And we also, as I mentioned, are so fortunate to have Rachel, who is our vet and PA advisor. And she and our colleague Olivia, who does some PA advising as well, they're really experts in those fields. And sometimes we have folks who are thinking med and then they want to consider PA. And I've had a couple of applicants who have chatted with Rachel and being able to really vet, is PA a better fit? So we really love that we have a team of people who really love what we do and have a wide variety of expertise to help you with no matter what path you're thinking about along the pre-health journey. So if you would like more support, we do what are called free 30-minute Zoom consultations. And we just sit down with you for 30 minutes. And like, I find those to be the most helpful because you can share your whole story and all of your personal interests and get that one-on-one feedback, personalized feedback that you can't necessarily get in a group setting. So what we'll do is we will, following this presentation tomorrow, we'll email out the recording to you. We will email out our contact information. And if you want to meet with us this summer, we're happy to chat with you, answer any questions, help you get set up with your plan for this coming year, and just want to wish you so well on this exciting time and really hope that it is a nourishing and wonderful time in your journey. And we'd love to be a support if we can. So I will pause there and see if there are any questions, and happy to answer those at this time. Yeah.
Nothing has come through yet. We'll see if anyone types anything in here at the end.
I hope everyone is still, maybe I've lulled everyone into, I've hypnotized everyone. Giving everybody
Just covered everything really well.
Yeah, giving everyone a moment to answer, to ask any questions, and really appreciate you all tuning in this evening. Okay. Well, it sounds like we may have covered it all. So if you end up having any further questions and you'd like to let us know, feel free to respond to our email that we'll send out to you with these resources, and we're happy to answer them. And we look forward to continuing to serve as a resource for you and really wish you a wonderful summer and a wonderful start to the next phase of your journey. So that officially concludes our presentation tonight, and I will stop our recording.